it being the weekend now, I'm able to have a little more time to pause and reflect on how things have been going. And I think the wonderful thing about these vlogs is that the fact that I have to come back and edit them later to publish them means that I have to revisit some of those experiences again, which is fantastic and I love it. But I feel that I've changed a lot, and I don't necessarily think it's for the best. Um, and I recognize that I'm already growing in a better direction, but I feel this, like, I think pride and, like, I guess just being so self-obsessed, self-consumed has been a big struggle. I think the only way to experience love is to give it. The only way to experience connection is to connect with other people, and that means really meeting them where they're at, and that means listening to their struggles and being empathetic. And I don't think I've been the best friend the past few weeks, especially with how much work that we've been doing. I've been really, and here's the thing. So here's the underlying thing. I am extremely aware of the financial and other external difficulties of my family right now, and the anxiety surrounding graduation is really more of an existential thing for me than it should be. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. You're moving into a more exciting phase of life that is amazing and wonderful, and I'm excited for that. But at the same time, there is this perilousness, this precariousness that I've talked about already so many times now. And I'm sorry, this might be a little bit long, but I have a lot on my mind, and I think talking through it here will help. And so, feel free to skip this if it's not for you, and that goes for any of my videos. But I do want to almost apologize to myself, apologize to whatever, the internet, for not being grounded in myself and grateful for all the wonderful things that I have. After the capstone video that I put out 3 weeks ago, which I'm now rendering out the video for, so it's crazy that it's been that long and that I'm that behind in my videos. Sorry. I'm coming to terms with the fact that it was reaching too far for the scope of the project, sometimes being so aspirational, self-destructive, and unhelpful more than anything. But I understand where it's coming from. Like, it's coming from that existence thing, right? It's coming from wanting to make something that feels significant. And I really don't regret that. That capstone video was a lot of fun to work on, and honestly, if it weren't for those couple of hours in the middle, it would have been fine. If I hadn't been pushing myself a little too hard at the end, I think it could have been an acceptable form of self-expression. But the fact that I pushed myself too far was something I was proud of, and I'm a little ashamed of that now, looking back. And I think we idolize that too much and respect that too much as a culture, which is really hard. That's the hard part, right? In a lot of ways, I don't think it's that dissimilar to, for personal example, being rewarded socially for losing weight, regardless of the reason. We reward overdoing, we reward the hard things, but sometimes it's not a price that is worth paying. Sometimes it's not a price that demands being paid. I'm speaking this too in reference to, I can't talk, the way that I have felt disconnected lately. When you aspire too much, I think you lose sight of yourself. You lose sight of what really matters to you, and it just comes out in this really gross, prideful, narcissistic way, because for you to be successful in that sense, that aspirational, over successful dreams, it can be isolating, I guess. It can be at the cost of other relationships, and that's not worth it. Like, I'm speaking to myself right now. Like, you are a social being, you are a social person, and your need for connection and humanity is far outstripping your need for dignity, or not even dignity, because you only get that from other people. Need for superiority, and I think the superiority is such a problem. And I try generally I'm pretty good at recognizing in myself that desire to be better than other people, and I'm fairly able to distinguish that from actual desire to create and produce something worth making. I generally would say that I just fall in love with a project, and I don't feel content until it's met the dream that I have in my mind, regardless of what other people are doing. And for the most part, I try not to think about what other people are doing for that very reason. That desire to simply create for the sake of creating, rather than constant comparison. But lately, I've been feeling this sense of frustration at myself for lack of growth, I guess. Discontentment with present moments of where the present is. All of these things are extreme concern to me. Concerning signs that I've been putting the focus on the wrong thing for a little while now, and I will say not too long, not too long, but a little longer than I'd hope. I'm losing the forest for the trees, you know? Success is irrelevant, you know? The acclaim of other people is only one indicator of progress in a certain direction. And unfortunately, that sort of progress is very rewarding. And honestly, going too far is freaking addicting. Like, when you think about it, like, oh, I want to go too far. Like, I want to go above and beyond with this project. I have a vision in my mind and I want to get it done. In some ways, being the only one doing that can feel really nice. But at the same time, it's not very satisfying at the end of the day. Like, it is, but it's not. I'm saying this is self-contradictory because it is. Because when I'm in the zone, when I'm working, I don't think about it. But part of what gets me working is thinking about it, unfortunately. And for the most part, I would say for the most part, it's more about me versus me. And at the end of the day, that's the only true comparison worth having. I don't care about the comparison with other people. Everybody's got so many different struggles, it's irrelevant. It doesn't even make sense to compare them. Like I said, this is going to be longer, so buckle up. But yeah, I just think that's been something I've noticed a lot lately in the way that I talk about my projects. So I was editing the video from a few weeks ago. The night before I edited and made that capstone video, the first one that I was so proud of, the night before it, I had this light in my eyes and I wasn't thinking about anything else besides the vision in my mind. And it's been hard. Like, I think Thursday night made it harder because I got this huge ego boost. This huge ego boost from getting good feedback from someone I respected a lot. And I think getting more feedback too from classmates and other things, because I think I was feeling so insecure, like, oh man, I hope all this work is paying off, but my vision in my mind is not being executed yet because it's way above what I can do right now. And so it's this horrible, like, it's this give and take of confidence and then also feeling insecure, but people telling you you're doing good work, but you don't feel it, you don't feel proud of yourself, and that's the part I hate the most. And that's why I've been needing this reset. And I honestly can't wait for spring break so that I'm not working on stuff and I, namely, don't have to feel guilty about that. everyone else in my life is working on weekends and things, getting projects done and underway, working evenings, and I can't keep that anymore because it ends up being a pride issue for me. It ends up being a point of feeling so much superior to other people, but I also don't want to let my rest feel superior either, because I recognize that that's a privilege that not everyone has, and I think that's been harder too, is feeling so guilty for having what I do have right now, and knowing that it's all borrowed because I'm a student and I have to pay all of it back and more. So that's been a point of struggle for me as well, just being like okay with spending money. And I guess everything is a give and take, and I've just been having a harder time taking what I need, even buying good food for myself, which I did today. I did do that, despite all of the struggles around it. But I haven't felt like myself, and I was talking to my sister the other day about looking at older pictures of myself from like a year ago and thinking about how much I miss that person and how much I miss all of the things about her. I look in the mirror now and I feel okay with the person I am, but I also have this sense of hatred for her, disgust with the person that she's been lately. And all of those are indicators that I'm not centered with myself, and I want this place to be a space of authenticity and growth. And also that means admitting a lack of it sometimes. I had to cut out a little chunk at the end of the last video, and I've never done so much before for cutting it out, but it wasn't worth putting out for anyone to hear and not worth repeating. And I'm honestly concerned that that's more the person that I genuinely am at the end of the day, and that's concerning, you know? Like this prideful person who just thinks that they're the best of whatever because they don't struggle with things the same way. And stupid business class has me thinking that somehow being an entrepreneur makes you better. And I'm not even an entrepreneur. I just share a couple of the traits of thinking a certain kind of way, and it doesn't make you better than anyone just because you're willing to pay a more expensive price for what you want. Doesn't make you better than anyone else. So it's just hard when, yeah, it is a, like, you can quantifiably see the growth in people. I just wish that I heard less of it, you know? I wish less people told me that I was doing okay, but also I just want people to be around me for me, not for my performance. And it's hard when that's often the only metric where I can quantifiably say, like, oh, I'm doing better than I was before, because look at how much better my work is. Or, you know, you got that grade, I got this grade. Not that we really consider grades much here, but it's just an easier way to relate to one another. It's a default position, despite, I think, a huge aspect of me working so hard the past few weeks has been a symptom of that really hard letter that I got at the beginning of the week, 3 weeks ago now, whatever that is. It's all been symptoms of a broken heart, you know? Symptoms of a heart that's struggling with that quiet pain. Work isn't something I'm necessarily ashamed of, but it's also not necessarily something that's, you know, it's also pain work, you know? It's also like dealing with a problem by doing something different. And there's nothing I can do about that problem, you know? It's things that will never really change. People that are hurting and damaged and have damaged each other. And so the symptom of that is heartbreak in other forms. And the weekend after I finished that capstone video, I was struggling a lot with feeling even more down than I ever had. I guess it's a symptom of that unprocessed pain from the letter being processed inappropriately through the work that I was doing incompletely. It's really just putting it off, right? Despite the tears that I cried over it, it wasn't processed. Because feeling it isn't the same as dealing with it. And looking at something is different from really taking it apart and putting the pieces back in a different way. I haven't been journaling as much or as honestly as I would like. That's what happens when you start working a lot, and I've been reading more, which is good, but I feel like I've been letting my own thoughts slip to the back burner because I'm afraid to admit how I feel. I'm afraid to talk about it because I'm constantly comparing myself, not only to myself, but to other people that have hurt other people. And so I've seen myself as someone who's hurt other people. And I have to find a way to come to terms with the fact that we're all gonna come into different people's lives at different seasons. And the seasons that we're in are always changing, and people only see one part of us. It's the part we share with them. And the more that we share, the more authentically we share, the better the relationships will be. That's mutual, it has to go both ways. And I haven't been as available for listening to other people's pain because I haven't been processing my own. I haven't been doing the work that I need to do to be the friend that I need to be for the people that I care the most about. And it's a ripple effect, and unfortunately it's becoming a tidal wave in my own emotions of feeling like there's nothing I can do about it now. But the truth is it's not that big, you know? And even if it was, it's nothing I can stop now, you know? But anyway, all that to say, I'm trying to face some of those things instead of dealing with them in ways that are inconsistent with true growth. Yeah, I don't have a clear answer to any of it, but even sitting here and talking is progress. Admitting to myself that I haven't been true to myself is progress. I don't know, today was different. The last few weeks have been very different, and I'm honestly not too proud of the person I've been lately. Very prideful, selfish, really bad listener. Let me just list all my worst traits right now, at least the stuff I've been struggling with the most. Really not a great friend, not paying attention to the struggles of my peers, and having a harder time keeping track of what's going on in other people's lives because I'm so hurt by my own. And even so we'll do a morning prayer before classes start. It's been hard to say, oh yeah, here's what's been going on in my life, because I haven't taken the time to look at it myself. It's really hard. It's really, really hard, especially considering that while I think it's important to recognize where we make mistakes and where our hang-ups are, the perfectionism, the need to defend this idea of a person that we should be, oh my gosh, I think that's really what it is. It's this narrative I've built with I need to be this kind of person to be perceived this kind of way, and so when I'm not perceived that way, it feels like a moral failure. And unfortunately that's a fallback to a person I was quite a few years ago, and I don't like that person. That's not a very nice person. That's not a very healthy person. Not a very nice person to yourself. And I want to fall back into self-acceptance instead of self-measurement constantly. I want to be accepting of myself regardless of if other people can see it. I am valuable regardless of my mistakes, and I don't have to perform for other people, but it's important that I love well to be the kind of person that I'm proud of at the end of the day. And I'm working on it. So yeah, the capstone video was a bit of a bummer. In the end, I am actually quite proud of the work that I did there, but the next few days I wasn't as comfortable with myself. That Friday video, boy, I was having a hard day. I was feeling so anxious and just antsy and frustrated and feeling like the people that were around me were just annoyed with me. And I wrote a paper about Tesla versus Ted Rosenthal, however you say his name, the guy who founded Blender. So the original Tesla and the guy who founded Blender. And I see a lot of myself in Tesla sometimes, or at least this internal desire to isolate, to become the best, to create what one person that I referenced in my paper said. Because Tesla was a self-made Superman. He created in himself the kind of person that he wanted to be, and it took isolating himself to get there. It took being separate from his peers to get there. But at the end of the day, and at the end of his life, Tesla died alone in a hotel. Isolated for the last few years of his life, without anyone to carry on his work. No progeny, no children. I said that in two different ways just then. No successors, no people who took on his process that he was teaching. And I don't want to live that way, you know? I don't want to end up alone like that. That's just so sad. Like, I'm sorry. I can't imagine that being a content, satisfying way to live your life at the end of your life. And design is so integral with human connection, that desire to make another person's life better, that I don't think you can divorce the two. I think you must be social to be a good designer. You must be connected to your friends and peers and you know, roommates and family. You need to be connected to design for them, or you're missing a mark. You're missing a point. So it was a huge check for myself to read that, because I felt this desire to put on full blinders, to put on full, like, I'm just gonna totally disregard, like, any need for slowing down and resting. So that was like a desire in me that I was fighting. And then it was just a really full week. This was the week after the capstone video, and we were doing all this work with the exams and all this stuff that totally worked out fine at the end of the day. The case study was fine. Everything was good. I actually won the case for the case study, so that was cool. Then, let me see. I was just feeling really competitive and intense the whole time, and I'm not exactly proud of that, because it's not really the kind of person that I tend to want to be. Like, I almost want my success to be accidental. I want it to be a result of just doing what I love doing, not the end product that I'm seeking. I'm not seeking the acclaim of other people. I'm not seeking to be the best designer ever. I'm seeking to do what I love and to keep doing that and hold high standards for myself with my work and my production quality, and making stuff that I feel proud of at the end of the day, regardless of how other people feel. So I had this vision for how I wanted my portfolio video to go, and oh my gosh, it was the worst few days working through the result of that. I had this really clear vision of what I wanted my portfolio video to be, and I was gonna execute it. I was gonna do it. I was gonna make it the best that I could, and I was gonna give it 100%, because I wanted to see what 100% from me looked like. I just wanted to see what it would look like if I gave it everything I had. So I did. I went out and filmed for a few hours. You know, you've already probably seen the vlogs of that by now, but I actually might even release this early so that it gives more context to the next few vlogs. Actually, I really probably will do this. In which case, I'll be recording a little explanation at the beginning of this, which I'm now explaining because I'm thinking out loud. But this is showing how I think. So, yeah, I not exactly proud of that week. I was just really intense, and I think when I'm feeling even more like, I was getting this feedback from my roommates and friends that were saying like, hey, dude, you need to be careful about how you talk about your work. You need to be careful about not stepping on other people's toes and hurting other people's feelings, and being careful. And just, it was a lot to try to take in, on top of already being extremely emotionally vulnerable from that unprocessed letter that I got, the unprocessed work that I needed to do that I still haven't done, really. I'm working on it right now. Talking about it helps. And it's going to hold me accountable too for actually growing in that. So all that to say, I was putting a lot into work as a result of the in-process stuff, and getting constant negative feedback from my friends and peers that I was, I needed to be careful about all these things, and that, I really needed to be more cautious about how I shared myself with other people, which they're valid. They're really, really right to say that. It's just that I was extremely emotionally vulnerable when all that was going down. It was such a rough week. Oh, man. But, I got through it. And part of how I got through it was making my life even harder. Because I, ran a 10K that weekend, too. And I was doing dumb stuff that helped me blow off a little bit of steam, like running in the cold. I went to the gym first thing in the morning one day, and instead of driving back in my coat like I was planning to, I was wearing biker shorts, by the way, and a t-shirt, and this was one of the cold mornings. Like, it was still snow on the ground. It was pretty cold. It was a couple days after the 10K, so I was, like, still on that high of, like, I can do it. I can do anything. So I ran back to my apartment without a jacket or anything. I was just blowing off steam, just doing that. But it was just, like, that's the kind of stuff that I was doing that was a little bit reckless, just pushing my limits, because that was the real goal that I had in mind, was pushing myself to my very limits to see what I could do. So that was the real, not always healthy mindset I had underneath my work. Just, curious minds are curious, pushing yourself. So don't know that was worth it, but it was definitely an experience. I definitely learned from it. So, yeah. Sorry. I did the most on the capstone video, or portfolio video. I went out and filmed myself for a few hours in the cold, and it was like I was saying to myself, like, I have what it takes. I have what it takes. I have what it takes. So I gave myself a harder process, and I did do it. I finished it. Stayed up super late. The night the project was due, I finished the project over 12 hours after it was due. I think it was finished at 4 p.m. on Saturday, and it was due at midnight on Friday night. And so just I am proud of myself for working so hard. And that is really where, and here's another thing with, like, our culture. That is where we get our worth from, right? It's like, I worked my butt off. Like, that is what makes me valuable. I worked so hard to get what I have, and that's what makes me valuable, right? Like, that's what I deserve rest for. It's just a lot. So after I finished the video on Saturday, in the middle of that, I had that really bad date that I don't know if I talked about. It was just a hot mess. Just, we were both out of it. I don't even remember half of it. I was so tired from working so hard on the video. And just, yeah. It's hard. First dates are so hard. First dates and trying to get a job, between the two of those things, I've been talking a lot about myself and trying to sell myself. And that's, I think, what's contributing a lot to the way that I'm so frustrated and disgusted by, like, the amount of pride and, like, self-obsession that feels like it's happening. And here's the thing with dating, and this is something that I'm Obviously, first dates are a little bit different because you don't know each other. It's not about me getting the attention that I want. It's about me giving the attention that the other person needs. Or not needs, but giving love, not about receiving it. And act of paying attention to the other person, listening well, and being a caring person. Like, doing that is what makes dating fun. Like, that's what makes it healthy and helpful. I haven't been, like, in that space because of the job hunt, because of other factors, because of not having processed that letter that I got, the emotional pain that came with it. Today was a lot, too, and I have not processed that completely. And, man, it's just been a bit of a weird time to be me. Weird time to be anyone, I'm sure. I am sure. I'm not pretending that that's not true. But, it's hard when you haven't processed crap. Like, if you're not taking time to process your life, it gets a lot harder to live your life. Stay focused on the present and future, not getting bogged down by the past. It's hard. It's really hard to, especially when people in your life are doing things that you don't agree with or acting in ways that are not in your best interest or not loving, to be able to set those things aside and, well, work through them and then set them aside, because that's how it works. It's hard. It's a lot of hard work, and it's not always easy at all. It doesn't always feel worth it either, like, honestly. But anyway, that's an aside. That's a little bit of an aside. This might be its own video. Actually, at this point, it will be. So, catch you later if I do that. But not completely done. So I worked really hard, finished the video, and then I crashed so hard, like, dead. I remember going to church the next day and stayed awake through. Do I remember what it was about? Not really. I took notes. They were bad notes. And then I went to, this was like a week ago. It has been a time. I will say that. It has been a time. So I drove myself to church for the first time in a while, and I was like, yeah, I needed the space to get back to myself. And I was hoping that it would fix whatever was funky, whatever was going on in my head, and it didn't really. But I'm glad that I went to my friends after church, had an extra social time. I was so tired, though, that by the time I got to her house, I lay down on the couch and I honestly just passed out. Like, I don't remember falling asleep, but it happened. And then the next day I spoke in chapel. I always say chapel. I spoke in Rally Point, which was our little school's version of, like, hey, this is what we're starting the week off with. Here's a story. I told them about, some of the things that God's done in my life and some of the changes that have happened over the few years. And, just wild experiences that have just opened my eyes with stuff, especially driving. So I talked about that, and I took, 2 naps at school. I don't nap. I'm not a napper, but I was so tired. I just couldn't keep my eyes open. And so I took a nap in the morning at a booth in the sunshine. That was nice. And then I kind of took a nap in the stairwell because I was needing space. And yeah, I got not a lot of work done this beginning of this week, and I felt kind of guilty about it, and I really wanted to make up for it in the evenings, but didn't really, because I was I don't know what to, I'm not gonna be able to get any work done because I'm just feeling so anxious and overwhelmed by it right now. And still think when you do something really hard, you need to take a little time to celebrate and appreciate it. But work is just so hard because there's always more of it. You're never given time in our society. We're not given time to be thankful for the things that we've done and the things that we're proud of. So sometimes you have to make that time. And so I'd already kind of budgeted for myself not to get a lot of work done this week, honestly. I thought about taking the entire week off, but I'm glad I didn't. But I say that like I had a choice. I didn't really. Didn't have a choice when my body shut down and needed naps. Didn't have a choice when I still had school the next day. Although technically maybe could have called out, but didn't. Yeah, so just ridiculous. Overdoing it, over dreaming, and denying myself joy in the present. Just not a smart way to go. Not a smart way to go at all. So yeah, that was beginning of the weekend, beginning of the week, and the next day I pretty much just talked to my friend the whole time. We just talked, and I feel a little bit bad just because I haven't been the best friend, because I've been ignoring myself, ignoring my problems, and dealing with them in ways that aren't the right answer. And I'm working on it. Like I said, working on it. But so I was, it was really, really nice to sit with her the whole day and just to hang out. Didn't get a lot of work done, but like I said, I wasn't really planning to, even on Tuesday. And both Monday and Tuesday, I had things with my church going on that night. So I went to a work night on Monday night and went and painted for a bit. I was so out of it, guys. I was so out of it. I don't know how I did that. And then Tuesday night, I went to a prayer meeting. That was really, really good. I think that was probably one of the best decisions that I made. So I was debating. I was like, I don't know if I have emotional, physical energy for this, but it was really refreshing, I think. Man, praying for things that aren't my own problems, thinking about things that are bigger than myself, like what? It just helps, I think, to get a little bit more of a true perspective on things and not being so overwhelmed by it. Oh, my problems are the most important, and I'm like the most amazing human being, and even this channel, like, I'm only talking to myself, so there's no feedback from other people, which makes it obvious that I know what I'm talking about. So all that to say, it was really, really good to go to the prayer meeting because I was forced to face that other people were dealing with big things and pray for them, like not even praying for myself at all, and that was really, really good. But I also was able to finally release some of that steam because I'd been told multiple times by my friends and peers that like they just weren't able to hear any more about my work, and so I just needed somewhere else to process it. You need that. You need time to like be with other people that are outside of the problem. Like y'all running a race, and yeah, I'm not gonna go up to the person I'm running with and be like, I'm so tired. I tore my ankle last week. This is why this is so hard. And they're just like, dude, my ankles hurt too. Like, I'm struggling with my own stuff. But it's the same stuff because we're struggling in the same race. Being able to talk to someone outside of it was genuinely the best thing. Also, just school's not everything, and that's always a really humbling thing to realize, and work's not everything, and it's why I don't really go in on evenings or weekends, because it's not the most important thing to me. I have to stay human at the end of the day. I say that like it's not significant to me. It is probably the most exciting and amazing part of my life, but it's important to keep it in place, you know. Plus, I think with our school structure, it's kind of a test run for how you're going to live in the working world. And if you're not working well and keeping good work boundaries with your school, you're going to have a hard time with work as well. So there's a time and a place for crossing those boundaries, and I hope to think that sometimes I keep the right priorities, but more often than not, we lose sight of it either way. So anyway, I'm getting a little sleepy now, so I might have to call it soon, but I also hope that, you know, I'm getting more tired, so I'm not talking as animated, but, so yeah, all that to say, this week has been really strange, and the past few weeks I've not felt like myself. It's a result of not not putting in the work with the problems that came up early last couple weeks. Not having time to do the work, but also not having the emotional bandwidth to do it. And it's just been this vampire taking all of my confidence in myself and turning it into pride, and taking all of the hard work that I'm doing and making it into something that's a comparison game instead of satisfaction with myself. And, you know, because the person that is like hard for me to deal with is, I say that in a weird way, I didn't mean that. So often we justify ourselves through comparison, negative social comparison or whatever, comparing ourselves to people that are doing worse than us, or just comparing in general to say that we're doing okay. It's such a weak way to live. It's a weak way to live completely. I think we should be good enough on our own. We should be good enough to say, this is what I'm doing and I don't need to explain it. I don't need to go any further except to say that I'm proud of the work I'm doing and it's more than I could do a year ago. It's actually very true. That's a really important thing to remember. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Wednesday was better. After the prayer meeting and stuff, I was more myself, and I've been sleeping a lot better, basically just passing out at 8 or 9 p.m. and sleeping until morning, and sometimes still feeling a little tired, but you know, I still truck along and I'm still excited and motivated about my work, although I wish I was more motivated. I think I had a little bit of a scare with myself. Oh man, Galentine's Day also happened. That was like a week ago though. Just after the capstone video, I had the worst, like, the bounce back from that was just really dark, and I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting to be hit by that level of, like, well, now that you've tried and achieved something significant, you're gonna feel like you need to keep doing that, or or your, like, self-worth is not valid. It's not even like that it's like that low of, like, when you're working and you're, like, working towards a really intense thing, there's this, like, high you get, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting things done. That was, like, the crash after, and it was darker than I've ever experienced with work. And again, that physical crash that I had earlier this week with needing to nap and stuff so much. I am very aware of the fact that I need to be more careful with how I'm handling these things, and of that, like, the fact that I don't want to run myself ragged on a race that's not mine to win. Design is important, but it's not paramount. It's not the number one thing that proves your worth. It's not the thing that saves you. Design is something that's beautiful that should flow from us naturally. I've read my poem on here before, but that which is organic and flows from us is preferred to the constructed perfection of what we perceive to be good. That is a line that I wrote that, like, I've come to really appreciate in myself. Of, you know, there is this constructed perfection that we can think is right, but the reality is that good work comes naturally from us, and that really happens best when we're most aware of who we are and most in tune with that authentic, true person that you are at the end of the day. So yeah, that's another separate thought, but related. Sometimes you gotta be okay with not being popular, but if you're starting to feel disconnected at a new level, that's a concerning thing, something you should definitely be careful with and cautious of. Feeling like everyone hates you isn't normal, you know. That's something that comes as a result of being insecure, and as a result of unresolved problems that you don't feel like facing. And I genuinely don't think that everyone does. There's just this sense that there's a few people that I know I've hurt through my carelessness because I was overwhelmed by my own problems to be a good friend. So really, really just am analyzing this as information. It is information and something important to learn from, especially so early on in my working life. Work-life balance is significant, if not probably the most important thing. Second to, of course, focusing on keeping your worth in what needs to be where your worth comes from, which isn't your work. It's not, and you are enough on your own, even if you never produce another design, even if you never make all that you were destined to make or desire to make. Living is significant. Experiencing is significant. You don't want to be passive with life, but actively experiencing it is not a waste of time, and it's not selfish, and it's not cruel to want to face and taste the life that you have. So, and there's always, gray areas with that, but I had more thoughts, but they're kind of gone now. I think I've covered most of it. I'm not 100% proud of who I've been lately, and it feels different. It feels strange, and I miss the person that I was a few weeks ago, and today was especially odd with all of the crazy accidents. Not even, I didn't have any, but well, I did hit a mattress, which I talked about already, but it was an interesting time. Even making these videos, I've been having so many, this voice in my head, that, it's the criticism that's come at one point, and it just lingers to say, oh, you can't make this kind of video, you can't make sense, you're not, good enough for that, and it's just so frustrating because the way to get better is to do it. The way to get better is through. The only way out is through, and so I think I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with my imperfect progress. I'm gonna embrace the imperfections and accept that I'll never be the person that I want to be, but I can be a person that I'm proud of today, and I don't have to earn that. I don't have to work hard enough to be okay with myself. I am still so proud of myself, and despite all of my imperfections, I am still proud of the person I am now. I try to think about when I'm working, I try to keep in mind two people, first and foremost. One is little baby me, little kid me, who works so hard on things that they loved. And I also think about me at the end of my life, looking back on this time, and I think I'd be more proud of this video I'm making right now than the portfolio and capstone videos that I worked my butt off for. I think I'd be more proud of this for that one. Little kid me might be more proud of the other ones, but old me is proud of me right now, for recognizing the need to get back to center. So, and this is not, this is definitely not for everyone to watch, but if you feel yourself drifting off center, ask yourself a lot of questions. Think through what's happened. Be your own scientist. Be your own analyst. Think about it and analyze it and be curious. Curiosity without judgment. Withhold your judgment. It's useful in some cases, and you have good judgment, but it's not useful right now. Set it aside. Be your own friend, and that means truly listening to your own problems and asking the good questions. Who do you want to be at the end of the day? Who is the person that you're proud of, and why do you want to be different than the person you are now? It's a constant evolution. We're always changing, right? We never really stop. That's the end of history illusion, that we think that we're someday going to be at a point where we're done changing. I think history itself is in a similar place too. I was listening to, I don't remember what video it was. A few weeks ago, I watched this video that talked about how there's a sociologist who believes that all of the big things that needed to be argued out have been argued out, and history is kind of ended as far as the big fights, and nothing new will really be said. In some cases, I think that's true. At the same time, today's never been before, nor have I. we are different than the generations that came before us. There's always constant evolution of not only the thing itself, but how we look back on the past and remember it. Past is changing just as much as our present is changing the future, the history, and it's interesting, and we should stay curious, stay aware of the problems going on in the world, but also the stories we tell ourselves about them. I'm by no means qualified to talk about this, but I'm reading a book called Who Will Pay Reparations on My Soul, and it's really been eye-opening for remembering the past and rethinking the future of how it looks to be successful in our world. What does success even mean? Who wrote that story, and where does it come from? These are all questions that I have to ask myself when I consider whether or not I'm successful, whether or not what I've done is good enough. But that is going to be it for me tonight. Like I said, longer video, and I am really, really thankful for the ability to take these videos and think through these things, and having the time to do that too. It's such a privilege, and thank you for taking the time to watch it if you do. And totally understand it if you skip this one today. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me tonight. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys later.